All right, welcome. So, doing something a little bit different today because normally we will. Well, I like to make beach clean videos with a little more production quality, but I figured today, I did an early morning beach clean, and I wasn't just in the mood for making a video, and I thought it might be kind of cool just to go through some of the items that I found today instead. And that way I can just sort of talk about in a little more depth, kind of not just what I found, but sort of what each piece means. Because, a lot of what I talk about with beach cleaning in terms of the items I find very much depends on the time of year that I find that stuff. It can be very different from one season to the next. So I think it's interesting to really kind of go through certain items that you find while beach cleaning and really just kind of talk about, okay, what's going on with this? Because it's not as sort of generic as you might think. Beach trash comes in all forms and shapes and sizes, varieties, and that means that the solution to beach trash and ocean pollution is certainly different from one situation to the next. So that's really what I want to do today, is just show you some items and talk about what's going on with this trash. Sorry if the mic is a little wonky. I tried to get the audio input right. I don't know if it is, but hopefully it comes through at least relatively clearly, because I know bad audio is not fun, but oh well, we'll make do. It's all about the trash, right? So if you're joining us live, I think we have a couple people already, so thanks for joining us. If you have questions as I go through some of these items, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer any questions, whether about anything really, about how I find these items, where I find them, how often I find them. There's a lot of questions that may come up going through some of this, and if you're watching the posted video of this, of course you can ask questions in the comments too. So, first thing I just wanted to mention, if you've never done beach cleaning before, there's a lot to consider, and I won't get into the reasons why it's so important, but rest assured, and if you look at any of my other videos, you'll see I talk about that a lot. Why dealing with ocean pollution, particularly ocean plastic pollution, is so important. And so, just to start in terms of what I use to beach clean, there's a lot of options that you can consider with the gear that you want, and just sort of, how you organize your own beach cleaning. Again, it's just kind of a habit for me now. I do organize regular beach cleans as like events, but I oftentimes just go out on my own to do beach cleaning. And, in this age of pandemic times, you sort of want to be a little bit more careful maybe than I have in the past. So a couple things that I always bring with me when I beach clean, always bring hand sanitizer. I think that's important, because you do find some pretty icky stuff out there. So there's other things that you want to bring when you beach clean. Obviously, if it's summer, you want to bring sunscreen. If it's near sunrise or sunset, you want to bring bug spray. You always want to bring lots of water, even in the winter. When it's not hot, you can still dehydrate and not have a great time. But certainly this time of year, summer is actually the worst time of year to beach clean, in my opinion, because it is so hot. I'd rather just go to the beach and swim, which I will do anyways while I'm beach cleaning. But again, you want to be really careful with that. So just take, precautions that you would going out to the beach, regardless if you weren't cleaning, if you were just going to hang out. So yeah, hand sanitizer, in addition to the other seasonal gear, a pair of gloves, which I'll be using as I go through some of this trash here. This is a bit superfluous, perhaps. This is a pretty big pair of gloves, but better safe than sorry. A lot of people like thinner gloves because these aren't very dexterous. You can see how thick they are. They're actually just old winter gloves, but they're kind of hard to pierce with like hooks or anything. So they're safe for that reason. I don't like using latex or that sort of stuff because it's disposable and that's just more trash. So I'd rather just use these and wash them, essentially. So I have gloves, Purell, or hand sanitizer, whatever. And of course, I always bring my trashy picker, Old Picky here, which is it's a pretty standard trash picker. I think I got this at like Walmart or CVS or something. Oh, Walgreens or something, for like $20. One thing I tell people with trash pickers like this is you're probably better off spending a little bit more money on a slightly better trash picker because they'll break really easily. You can get, I don't know, $5, $10 ones in the store or whatever, but those sort of are so brittle. Ironically, they're oftentimes made of entirely brittle plastic. This is at least somewhat metal, but those flimsy plastic ones break so easily. I've had friends buy them to go beach cleaning, and they break within a few days of beach cleaning. And then it's like, well, you're going to spend $10 on another one. What's the point? Whereas this, I've had, I don't know, maybe 3 now, and it's held up pretty well, even though it does have some plastic. And they make ones that are pretty much all metal. That might be a investment coming up for me. I don't know, maybe next Christmas or birthday or something, I can just ask for one. But yeah, they have these cool like clipper ones that are made of metal. But I think those are more expensive. I haven't really looked too much into it. But for now, this is done pretty good, pretty well. Again, the advantage of a trash picker is that you don't have to touch the trash yourself, and you can sort of, reach at items that you can't normally reach, perhaps, especially in like tall grass. Around here where I beach clean, there's so many ticks and Lyme's disease. So you don't want to be getting into those weeds. So anything like this where you can have extended reach is pretty great to clean with. So I really like my trusty picker. One of my oldest friends now. It's served me well. So yeah, those are, like I said, just the common items that I use. And then I'm gonna, as I said as well, show you some of the treasures I found today. Now, this beach clean that I did today was, one of the big things I try to emphasize with beach cleaning is destigmatizing it. And what I mean by that is that you don't need, a fancy setup or all this gear or, an organized event to go beach clean. If you live near a beach, you can just go walking on the beach and pick stuff up. In fact, one of my previous videos I did was on beach cleaning with no gear. I just showed up to the beach. I didn't have a bag. What did I do? Guess what? I found the bag pretty quickly, right? And I used that to collect trash in, and that's even better than buying trash packs to fill up and throw out. So there's really no reason why you can't do it. And if you don't live near a beach, well, if you live anywhere near any waterway, that's the problem with plastics is that they're brittle, so they break, but they don't decompose. They don't break down fully for decades or hundreds or even thousands of years. So oftentimes with plastic that might be nowhere near an ocean, if it's going to be around 1,000 years, that's plenty of time for it to wash down to the ocean via rivers and storm drains and all that sort of stuff. So I actually tell friends of mine that cleaning inland is actually just as important as cleaning on a beach. If you can get that trash before it gets to the water, that's just less trash that is going to end up in marine environments. So yeah, friends, anybody watching who doesn't live near a beach, I know a couple people on Instagram now who don't live near a beach and they still do neighborhood cleanups and community cleanups for exactly this reason. So it's good to see people knowing that more and more. But again, there's opportunity to really, do some good work if you recognize the fact that this is all obviously interconnected, right? So anyways, like I said, I'm gonna pop on the gloves because I do not like handling this trash with my bare hands if I can avoid it. Yeah, I probably need to get more dexterous gloves, like I said, in the future. That might be an upcoming investment. But for now, they do the job. So I actually, like I said, it's funny because there really is a wide diversity of items here, despite the fact that it was just going down to my local beach in the morning, and tomorrow I'm going to go back probably, and I'll find just as weird of items, if not different items as well. And that just speaks to the diversity of the problem, whether people are leaving trash at the beach there, or again, it's running down from farther inland via, rivers and storm drains and that sort of stuff, right? So one of the first things I found, which is quite common, obviously, is a water bottle. I don't know if you can see that, it's a little blurry. But this is obviously one of the more common pieces of ocean pollution. And it's a shame because it should be one of the more avoidable ones, right? And this is good to find because this is a pretty fresh one. It looks like it's pretty clean, so I can just rinse this out. And as long as the number is a recyclable plastic, all right, I can't find the number right now, but I think most water bottles like this are pretty easily recycled. So I can put this in the recycling. Again, how much of your recycling actually does get recycled and what is done with it is another issue or problem, because that's a whole other topic. But essentially, I know there's a lot of issues with, like I said, how much plastic that says it's being recycled actually is, and where that actually goes. Because I think you can only recycle certain grades of plastic a certain amount of times before it just ends up in the trash anyways. So a lot of this in terms of the solution is about reducing and sort of considering alternatives. Instead of buying plastic water bottles, well, have your own bottle that you fill up, a reusable bottle, right? So these single-use plastics are really, I think, sort of the key of the problem of ocean plastic pollution in general. And until we really address that, I mean, we're always going to be finding these. And the problem is that for every one of these I pick up, there's 100 more that wind up in the ocean. They wash away to somewhere else where there is nobody to clean them up. So I think just being aware of that fact and sharing that fact and spreading that fact with more people so that they are aware, it's about getting closer to a critical mass of like, okay, well, this is something that obviously to address this issue, you have to address other fundamental issues, right? Like, it's easy for me to say, oh, everybody just use a reusable bottle. Like, some people don't even know where you get a reusable bottle, right? Some people might not have access to go, even buy them. So I think there's much more sort of, like I say, structural, systemic issues that we need to address too. But the more people that are talking about them, at least, the more we can have that conversation, right? So that water bottle, quite common. And I found another bottle that was sort of similar, but you can already see this one. It's a little blurry. Let me see if I can get it in focus. Focus. All right, I'll put myself not in front of it. Yeah. So you can see this bottle is already starting to get kind of stained. It's clearly been out on the beach for a bit. I would guess maybe, I don't know, probably at least a week, because it looks like it's had time to get dirty and have dirt stick to it. The problem with this now is that it's getting dirty to the point where I don't know if it can really be recycled. I don't know precisely what happens if you try to recycle this stuff that is dirty, but I don't think it's typically recommended to do so. So the sooner you can get items like this off the beach and actually recycle them, the better. Now, the problem, of course, in the age or era of COVID, like we say, is that a lot of people are sort of very cautious about picking up fresh trash. And I think for good reason, right? You obviously want to be careful, because if somebody was just drinking this and they had COVID, well, this could be not so great, right? So yeah, you do want to be careful. And obviously I should disclaim from the beginning about this, follow all CDC, FDA guidelines, all that stuff, right? So be careful. And this is why I say using something like a picker, gloves, sanitizer is super important for beach cleaning. My other general rule is if you don't recognize something or you don't feel comfortable, don't pick it up, because there's always going to be another piece of trash that you can pick up. So yeah, you can see pretty quickly, though, how over the course of, even just a couple weeks, probably, the plastic goes from recyclable to maybe not so much. And then sometimes, I didn't today, but I'll find water bottles that are, barely discernible because they've degraded so much. And you not only definitely can't recycle those, but they're just continuing to break down and poison, local environments, unfortunately. So lots of other stuff. I don't know what this is, but I kind of liked it because it was like an American flag thing. And I thought that was plastic appropriate. I don't know, maybe it's covered or something, but it's definitely plastic. And things like this kind of ironically stick with me, because I always see something like this and I think, what are we doing here? Like, making plastic American flag things. Great, cool. Well, it's poisoning the earth now. Thanks. So not too happy about anything like that. This was a nice one that I found today. Sandal. Again, we think shoes and we think, well, shoes are made out of like cloth and leather. It's like, nope, this is probably mostly plastic, it turns out. Maybe some rubber. I don't think it's all rubber for sure. I mean, a lot of clothes and things that you find, it's like, yeah, it might be involve cloth. It might have cloth in it or rubber, but there's also synthetic like plastics often involved. You see this a lot with different types of clothes and ropes and that sort of stuff too, where you think, oh yeah, ropes are made out of, whatever rope's made out of. Oh, well, that's the point. You don't even know what rope's made out of, right? So maybe it's actually made out of something else, and oftentimes they are. Or again, there's some sort of composite where it's something somewhat organic, but then it's again something plastic based as well. A lot of little things like this too, little straw wrappers. Sorry, I'm not doing good with the focus here today, but little straw wrappers. These again, they might not seem like much, but this is a type of beach trash that sometimes I'll do a clean, or I'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, there's nothing to clean. The beach is perfectly clean. And, just because you're not seeing whole bottles doesn't mean that there isn't scrap plastic like this. I call it scrap plastic. And the problem with this is that it is so small and it is easy to overlook. But if you get enough of these, it will very quickly equal the amount of plastic of a bottle. And I understand sort of that mentality, like, well, why bother picking all of 100 of these up if you could just pick up one bottle and it's the same amount of plastic? Well, why bother doing anything, right? Obviously, every bit only counts in so much as that you keep picking up stuff, right? So I think this stuff does add up, but you sort of do need buying. And again, that can be a lot of little things like this that add up, right? So it does make a difference every bit. I found this sort of the lid to a probably like a soap thing or an oil thing or something like that. This is relatively common type of thing to find. Yeah, it says 1 quart liquid to line, which sounds like an oil type phrase. So that's no good. Can't even recycle that. That's going to the landfill like most of this, unfortunately. But again, it's slightly better than it just being in a marine environment, right? A lot of lids. So this is, I think, like a Pringle lid or something. Yeah, a lot of these. Again, can't really recycle these, but they are still out there in high quantity. More bottles like this, which again are getting sort of dicey in terms of whether or not you can recycle them. So you can try to wash them, but again, at a certain point, they're too soiled to really do much with. Found some of this too, again, more scrap trash, where this is like a styrofoam type thing, which I thought styrofoam was like gone. Like I thought that went the way of the dinosaurs, but I thought that with the 6-pack rings too, those ones that you see in old videos from the 1990s or 1980s, right, where they're like, oh, the seagulls are getting their feet stuck on these soda rings. And so I still see those sometimes, and I thought they were banned. So still finding styrofoam, which again is nonsense that I don't like. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you too, talking about what I was saying with ropes, and how ropes oftentimes are actually made out of different composites of plastic fibers. And I find these a lot on the beach. So get out of frame. I can't get out of frame, but sorry, I'm still learning the nuance of this new camera, but there we go. So you see here, this is sort of a rope that you often find with certain just like beach type stuff. It's pretty strong rope that they use to tie stuff down, but it's clearly made out of some sort of like plastic fiber composite type thing. And in fact, I found another piece bit farther down the beach, and you see like as it frays, it just turns into this nonsense plastic frayed wire string thing. And it's like, okay, well, this isn't great, for marine creatures to be chomping on, right? So I try to pull out as much of this as I can. This is actually pretty funny when I find it though, because oftentimes I'll find just like a piece of this sticking out from the sand, And I'm always like, it's the version of like Beach Clean game show where you think, oh, am I going to pull it? And is it going to be, 10 yards of string, or are you going to pull it and it's just going to be a little piece like this? And this was just a little piece today, but sometimes you try to pull it and you're tugging and you can't even get it out because it's buried. The other end is buried so deep in the sand. So that's kind of fun when I find something like that on the beach. Again, if you guys have questions about any of this as I go through, do feel free to ask. I found this cool little toy soccer ball, which is now just beach trash, but I thought that was a funny find. This is something that was probably left on the beach. This was something that probably, I don't know, maybe it was a dog toy or something. And again, if it goes too far and the dog doesn't get it, sometimes unfortunately people just leave it. So yeah, that's kind of a shame, but I'm glad I found it. And again, the problem with pieces like these is that they're so easy to wash away and then end up somewhere else on some shore in some random place where there's nobody around to pick it up. So that's why it is super important for people themselves to really be aware, whether it's people with pets and toys like this, or people with kids who, I see this all the time, people at the beach, their kids have all these plastic toys like sandcastle stuff, and they barely clean up after themselves when they leave. They say, all right, pack everything up, and then they leave and half the sandcastle toys are left behind, which is such a shame. So again, that's on the individual scale, something that a lot of people can do. And some people are really good with it. I don't like to judge people as a monolith. And I certainly see that, where I see parents and they're very diligent. And I've seen pretty recently, even parents who say, okay, pick up something else, in addition to the stuff that we have here. They have their kids pick up one other thing that's around them, which is fantastic. So I think there is a growing awareness in that sense. And we certainly need more of that, right? But yeah, I thought this was kind of cute to find. Found a lot of this, and I often find this, so just like plastic cutlery. Just the other day, I found a full dining set, spoons, forks, knives, the whole deal. You often see these, especially in the summer, because people are going down to the beach to eat whatever, especially ice cream. They'll bring these spoons, and it's a real shame because this is the type of plastic pollution that I feel like there's such a solution in terms of addressing this. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, which wasn't that long ago, going back to the 1990s, where whenever we would go out and get Italian ices or something, shaved ice, it always came with these wooden spoons, these little like wooden things, and whenever I see anybody with shaved ice or Italian ice today, it's always plastic. And I'm thinking to myself, what happened? What is going on with the plastic industrial complex and their industry and their lobbying, that they're able to push out the little wooden stick people, and we're stuck with this now. Again, how sustainable are those little wooden pieces? I mean, this gets into a much more broader argument about something that you often heard more so over the past 5 years, not so much the past couple of years now, though, where people would argue that, oh, plastic bags are better than cloth bags or reusable bags because it takes, every cloth bag is the same carbon footprint as however many hundreds of plastic bags or 1,000 plastic bags, which I always felt was nonsense, because I don't know, nobody ever gave me a citation or a study that showed that was true, first of all. And even if it is, I have cloth bags still from high school that I use. So I've definitely used them hundreds, if not thousands of times. And so I sort of, I wonder sometimes when I see those arguments, what they're actually based on and how valid and relevant they actually are. So again, this is a little thing that I think can make a big difference. This is something that I find as well with, little things like toothbrushes even. I switched recently to bamboo toothbrush, which again, doesn't seem like a huge deal. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but, one of the things that I like about the bamboo toothbrush is that you've replaced 90+% of the plastic toothbrush with just a natural, thing that breaks down more naturally. The bristles, I think, are still plastic, But again, replacing 90 whatever percent of that plastic, I think, does matter. You know, that does make a difference. So I think that definitely helps. One thing I've been finding a lot of, and I think you find a lot of in the summer, but you find it all year round, are cigarette butts, of course. That's maybe the next video I'm going to work on, is talk a little bit more about cigarette butts and how much of an issue these are. There's a lot of just bad things about cigarettes in general, but particularly cigarette butts when they get into marine environments, and they are everywhere. Like I said, I need to do a little bit more research on these for this upcoming video I'm doing, but you know, just from talking to people who are in the marine sciences, they're obsessed with, you know, dealing with butts, because, you know, many of them will tell you it's among the, if not the worst form of ocean pollution, just because there's so many of them. Again, I'm going to look up the numbers for my upcoming video, but I know it's an insane amount of number of cigarette butts wind up in the ocean every year, which, you know, is sadly not surprising, but it's definitely a problem. And similarly, I've been finding a lot of these lately too. These vape, I think they're like vape pen things, right? And again, it might not seem like a big deal. It's just this little piece, but you know, you add this up over, sorry, I'm blurred. You add this up, you know, person after person, it adds up pretty, you know, quickly and pretty substantially, right? So that's definitely a problem. And, you know, I actually found, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it was funny. I found a similar piece like that. And I think this one's made of wood, actually. So there are like alternatives. Again, you can do like wooden versions of that, but the problem is there's an industry that's promoting and proliferating these plastics because they are so cheap and they are so easy to manufacture and dispose of. So again, I think that's just about being aware of the fact that this needs to be, you know, exposed for what it is and how often it's used. You know, I also, speaking of summer stuff, this is kind of discouraging because I found this cup, and this is actually from a local restaurant that's right around the corner from my local beach. So clearly, whoever had this took it with them to the beach, and then they did not dispose of it. They left it there. And again, this is a lot of plastic that will take forever to break down, essentially. You know, it's crazy to me with single-use plastics when you think of the fact that, okay, this is something that somebody's going to use for maybe sometimes a few minutes, but it could last hundreds, if not 1,000 years or something like that. And I mean, just think about that in a mathematical breakdown sort of way where, okay, you're using it for a few minutes, maybe a day, and this is going to stick around, you know, composing in the marine environment for 30 generations of humans to come or something like that. That's crazy. So I like I keep saying, that just needs to be talked about more, I feel like. And it's ironic, this one, because it does have a paper straw or cardboard straw or whatever. But as you see, that doesn't solve the fact that, well, this straw is only, compared to this cup, maybe, you know, I don't know, a few percent of the total plastic here, or total product here is plastic, is the paper. The rest is plastic. And you know, it's ironic because sort of what sparked the anti-plastic straw movement a few years ago was that video. You can just YouTube it. You know, turtle, you know, nose plastic straw, where they had to pull the plastic straw out of the turtle's nose, and it was horrifying. And it's like, I feel like we need a version of that for cups. Like, I don't know, maybe a bigger creature choking on a cup or something, because that type of visceral imagery, unfortunately, seems to be what it takes to motivate people to sort of, you know, get motivated and do something about stuff like this. So the awareness is growing and people are coming around, but yeah, I mean, there's bigger problems like the plastic straw bans. Unfortunately, they don't solve everything, right? And I think you see this as a perfect example. You know, it's like, well, it's a cup. How is a turtle going to choke on it? It's like, it's not. But if this winds up in a whale stomach or something like that, again, the ecosystem is so interconnected. You hurt one type of animal or damage one part of the environment, and that obviously causes, you know, ripple effects in other environments, right? And across the entire ecosystem. So I don't know if I can recycle that, but you know, I don't know. We'll see what we can do maybe. Um, what else do we have? Yeah, a lot more single-use plastic stuff like this, like these Pop-Tart scraps, Pop-Tart wrapper scraps. Um, what else do we have here? Uh, oh yeah, this is one of my arch nemesis, string, fishing line string. This is so insidious, this stuff. It just tangles up in everything. You know, oftentimes I find clumps of seaweed and just clumps of biomass that is all wrapped up in this. And again, you think about like nesting animals, especially, things such as animals such as turtles. They rely on these environments to not get tangled up in this stuff. So one wire. This actually doesn't even look like fishing line. This might be like a kite string or something. It's hard to tell oftentimes, but most of the time I find string like this, it's cut fishing lines that get tangled or snagged or break, and people just kind of cut them loose. So whenever you pick these up, these are huge because again, I've seen even seagulls with fishing line tied around their legs, and it's awful. And as I mentioned, there's I'm getting tangled in it now, but there's always ripple effects with this type of stuff. So it's not just about picking up the most plastic you can. It's not just about the net weight, like, oh, I got 20 pounds of plastic. That's great. But you can measure plastic collection in the items that you find as well, because some are certainly even worse for marine environments and marine creatures than others. And I think this is a perfect example, because it's not only plastic, but it's a particularly insidious type of plastic in terms of how it can, on a very physical level, harm animals. Obviously, as plastics break down, they leach chemicals into the environment, but they also in the short term have very specific physical impacts and implications. Again, if you guys have questions about any of this as I go along, please do not hesitate to ask in the chat, because I know there's a lot of like weird stuff, as I said, in terms of the diversity of items here. And speaking of weird diversity of items, another thing that I've found a lot of are the COVID masks. So I'm not going to hold on to that for very long, because I think that one's fine, honestly, because it was clearly at the beach for quite some time when I found it. It was like buried in the sand and pretty beat up. So I think that's actually probably relatively safe to handle, compared to if you just find a mask fresh in the sand. So you really do have to be careful with finding that type of stuff these days. As I said at the beginning with the water bottles, obviously, something that looks like it was just left there yesterday, or maybe even a few hours or a few minutes ago. Yeah, this is why having gloves and sanitizer and the picker can really come in handy. So you're not exposed to that type of stuff. So unfortunately, so much of that now, the masks, and some of them are cloth, but a lot of them are either plastic or they have plastic components. And I've been finding them everywhere. A lot of beach cleaners I talk to around the country, they've been finding it everywhere. I did a video recently with another channel called the Trash Pirates down in Florida, because we wanted to sort of compare and contrast the items that we found. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the same things, especially the PPEs, right? The masks and that sort of stuff. So, and a lot of that too, it's multi-source. Some of it, it's people leaving it at the beach. Others, it's just stuff that garbage cans tip over, falls out of somebody's car, whatever the case may be, winds up in the ocean regardless, right? So obviously, we need to be much more vigilant with how we, keep an eye on these too, because, once more, one, it might not seem like the end of the world, but I don't even know how many there are in the ocean now. At least millions, probably. I would be surprised if there weren't, to be quite honest at this point, because I found, since COVID started, I've probably found, I want to say 100 masks. And granted, I'm a lunatic and I beach clean all the time, but that's still a lot of masks to find. I mean, I find as many masks now as some of these other pretty common items. Maybe not as much as water bottles, but some of these other things certainly. So, yeah, definitely a big problem. A lot of caps too. Caps are sort of the age-old plastic pollution. No shortage of these, unfortunately. I've always been finding caps for sure. And then I'll get entangled in this wire again. A lot of like takeout type stuff. Probably like just grocery store food, maybe like fruit or something like that. Again, like you have to ask, is there a better way to sort of package grocery store food like this, right? It's like, well, yeah, this is cheaper. This is faster. You know, maybe in the short term, it does pollute less because you're not making it out of wood. Again, I don't know enough about, I haven't researched it enough about that comparison to say for sure, but it's unsustainable. Like, what are you going to do? You can't keep doing this for 100 more years. It's not going to work because this stuff ultimately does make it into the ocean. So this is why I say, keep saying as well, we really need to fundamentally reconsider and rethink, you know, just our consumption methods too, I think ultimately, because there's just too much of this stuff more and more every year. And of course, despite the plastic straw ban, I still find straws, and this is a particularly pretty beat up one. See, it doesn't even want to focus. That's how old it is. But again, the problem with plastic is that it takes so long, like hundreds of years, like I said, to break down, but it only takes, you know, moments to break apart. So that's, again, the issue in the sense that it's very brittle plastic. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, well, it's like a lot of materials in the sense that, you know, you can break this apart and it looks like, oh, it's gone. But no, the actual like molecules on the smaller scale, they will stick around as they slowly degrade for so, you know, however long that takes, which again can be hundreds of years. So that's the problem where it's like out of sight, out of mind, unfortunately, but that's not a good thing, you know, just because you think it. So I think that was pretty much the main items. I did find a couple other like fishing related things. So this, I think, was just like a part of a lure or something like that. Again, I think this is all plastic. It's just unfortunate that there aren't better alternatives, which I suppose there are, but you know, if those are any amount more expensive, people are going to go to the cheaper option, right? Yeah, I found a bag too. Like I said, you know, if you don't have a bag on you, well, you can always just find a bag on the beach. And this is a perfectly good trash bag. It's a little dirty, but you know, that's beach trash for you. But I find that all the time. Like I said, I can just go to the beach and clean even without gear. And then just the last couple things I found this ribbon, which was just weird. I don't know what that was doing there. I don't know if somebody was partying with ribbon at the beach or whatever. Or washed down, I found a little foam piece. Again, this is probably part of a buoy or something like that that broke apart and wound up as trash. And then I found what I think was like a plastic Lego toy type thing, which, as I've already mentioned, you know, kids obviously not always picking up after themselves can be a huge issue. And then lots of other wrappers, that sort of stuff. You know, like I said, yeah, it's pretty seaweedy, some of this stuff. So I'm not going to hold on to it too long. But again, this adds up. You know, it doesn't seem like a lot, but adding all this up, I probably got 2 pounds of trash over the course of that, you know, just 25 minutes beach cleaning this morning on my morning walk. So anybody can do it, and it does make a difference. I mean, it all comes back to the idea of tragedy of the commons. If none of us, you know, really consider the fact that we do have a meaningful impact ourselves, well, you know, obviously this problem only gets worse. So that's, you know, really what I want to sort of forward and promote, like this idea that, well, yes, it might seem like you're not making a huge difference, but you actually are on the local level, as I've mentioned, as well as collectively helping us to proliferate the awareness to these issues, and, you know, start to talk about how we can address them. So yeah, so those were my treasures today. If you guys have any questions, you know, please feel free to ask now. Like I said, I will be doing a video. I think I'm going to do a clean specifically to pick up cigarette butts, because that's one item that I often pick up as I beach clean. But I was curious like how many I could actually pick up in a beach clean, because I don't really specifically look for them and I don't really specifically think about them when I clean. They're just kind of, they've always been another form of, pollution to me. But as I've sort of read and heard more, I realize how bad they actually are, even compared to some of these other forms of trash. So I kind of want to just see like, well, if I specifically look for these, for cigarette butts, how many will I find exactly? Because oftentimes on a beach clean, I might get 20 or 30 of them easy. And, but again, I'm not really specifically looking for them. And when I start to notice a bunch, I feel like I notice a bunch more. And this is true of plastic pollution in general. This is why I tell people who are first-time beach cleaners, as soon as you start to notice these types of trash, you can't unnotice them. All of a sudden, you kind of realize that it is everywhere. I was talking to my brother a while back, and we were talking about we were watching Survivor Man, which is a great show, and we were talking about like, well, if you had to survive in one place in the world, what would you pick? Would you pick the Arctic? Would you pick the Amazon? Would you pick the Kalahari Desert? And I stand by my decision that I would pick anywhere where there's a beach, because anywhere where there's a beach, there's going to be tons of trash, and you can probably do all right with it, right? You could probably, I could wash, sanitize most of this. I have a fishing line. I have fishing lures. I have cups. I have everything I need to survive, unfortunately, right? But it's true, because again, all that stuff winds up in the oceans, whether it's starting there or not. So I think that's super important to, really just, consider the fact that every little thing you do does help. And, just talk to people, just try to learn more. Obviously, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Nobody is perfect. And I'm not trying or claiming to be, but, I'm just trying to show, based on my experiences, what I found and sort of what I've noticed and how that's, been consistent over time and changed over time in other ways. And again, it's not all, bad. It's not all trash. I oftentimes find beach class too, which is trash in of itself, but it's at least beautiful. I found a piece the other day. I'll just show you actually that I thought was really cool. It's like the bottom of some sort of bottle, but yeah, some really, really beautiful beach glass there. See if I can block it. Yeah, it's a little blurry. Yeah, sorry, I got to figure out the focus on this new camera, but yeah, really cool beach glass here. So yeah, so thanks for checking out my beach trash today. Like I said, I'll have the video probably later in the week, a normal YouTube video on the cigarette butts. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything we showed over the course of this stream, please, comment, let me know. Like if you enjoyed going through this trash, and, subscribe, all that good stuff. Because like I said, we'll have more beach trash videos coming out soon. And the full, if, you're joining us late, the full video of this, of us going through the trash, should post shortly on our YouTube page. So yeah, please like, subscribe, share with other people who are concerned about the ocean. Because I honestly do feel that way, that everything that we can share and everything, more that we can learn is a step in the right direction. I was just talking to some local high school students running an organization about a lot of conservation work that they're doing. And it's fantastic to see people, especially younger people, doing that type of stuff. So, I was learning a lot from them. They were learning a lot from me. And it's funny how you don't think of yourself as an expert on something because you're just doing it. But it turns out that, like, well, if you actually do something and you do it enough, your lived experience of going through and cataloging all of this trash and, sort of noticing these trends and the types of trash and how often they are, that's information that's valuable, and it's worth cataloging and sharing with others. So we'll have more coming up in the future. So thanks so much for joining us today, for getting trashed. And like I said, we'll have that video probably by the end of the week. So thanks again. Stay safe out there, as I said. And until next time, keep cleaning, and hope to see you on the beach soon.